Hi everyone. The question is, why should I pay a high price for essential oils? Why should I pay MLM prices when there's companies that have just as good essential oils for cheaper? So let's delve into this question and see can this actually be the case? So one company that claims that they are right up there with the top oil sellers is Revive. And Revive oils do have pretty cheap pricing. So let's look at frankincense. Here we see frankincense is $18. Wow. Compared to doTERRA, which is around $70, $68, this is really cheap. Why would I want to pay $68 for frankincense when I can get it cheaper from Revive? What does it actually take to harvest frankincense? So here you see the labor-intensive process it is to go out and tree by tree make these cuts and then harvest it, come back and have the women go through and separate bark from resin. The question is, can we get pure oils from a cheaper price? Do we need to be paying these MLM prices? Let's see what the reports say. Revive has this report, and this is bergamot, and it says it's actually the chemical profile is authentic. Well, let's look at this date. This is December 28th, 2018. So the problem here with this is this is an older testing. And unless you are taking and have a bottle with a batch number at the bottom, just like doTERRA does, then you don't know if that oil is specifically from this lot number. So they would need to put every batch would have to be associated with a number that's associated with the bottle in which you're purchasing in order to know, is your oil coming from this lot? So let's look at more recent testing of bergamot. This is from Aromatic Plant Research for the Revive Bergamot, and this was 4/1/2019. And it actually has markers here associated with synthetic markers. So this is not 100% pure oil as stated. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's look at birch. Really old testing, November 29th, 2018. It says it's pure, but does the birch have a number associated with this lot number? Let's look at a more recent test. March 19th, 2019, Revive birch. Again, synthetic markers. You can take an oil from any company and send it to Aromatic Plant Research Center for $200, and you can have it tested. I got this testing from a friend. Okay, their Deep Soothe is not on here. Okay, we can see their Deep Soothe they have not tested. But let's look at their testing for Revive Deep Soothe. Okay, 4/1/2019, Revive Deep Soothe. Synthetic markers here of linaloyl acetate. This is Syntrans. So again, not a pure oil. You cannot get these prices and have it be pure. It's not possible, not with the labor-intensive process it takes to make these oils. Okay, here's the Aromatic Plant Research Center, and let's check out their video here and get a little bit more insight on how they're doing their testing. They actually are doing very extensive testing.
We look at, for every sample we test, we look at more than 1,000 components. Because again, it's not those top 30 or 40 that will make up 90+% of what actually is in the oil. That doesn't tell you the story of it's pure or not. You got to look at the bigger picture, everything else the steps that would have been left is someone's trying to build an oil or make more profit for themselves. There are indications, and whether it's the biomarkers are reduced, the synthetic markers are there and increased, clear indications that this is not a pure oil. So most of the time, for any, like a general lab, we'll you do a GC-MS run for about 30 minutes. And so allow it for 30 minutes to separate out. We run ours again because we're not really focused on those major components. We run ours for at least 100, usually 110 minutes. So more than double. Because again, you think of all these thousands and thousands of components in a sample, the bigger picture you get, the more they separate out. The easier it is to identify them and to really see a much bigger picture of what's really in that oil. So our run times are far longer than nearly any other lab, and our expertise in being able to identify unknowns, things that other labs have never seen before. They don't know what it means to actually find these components.
So his process for analyzing oils is much longer than the average person, about 110 minutes. And they're looking for people who are building oils. This is a College of Pharmacy, and how does this pertain with what we just saw with APRC? Well, Dr. Tabbitt talks about the oil effect here. And what they found was if you take an oil and you break it down into its molecular components and build it back together, it doesn't have the same biological effect. What they found is doTERRA's oils have the same biological effect every time. Because why? Because they're pure. If you take a component that's from nature and try to build the oil, it may be quote unquote natural because you took another component from nature to build this oil. What's often, there's so many that are trying to build lavender. It's not pure lavender. And you have these linalool and lavandin and all of this stuff that goes in to make lavender, these molecules, and it's not actually lavender. And they found that when you do that, you're not going to get that same biological effect. So here, right here, we see that they also observed that the effects of doTERRA essential oils were not replicated by administration of individual components within the oil itself, suggesting that biological effect of doTERRA essential oils are the property of the whole oil. So they took doTERRA essential oils, broke them down, and try to use those components and rebuild it, and it did not have the same effect. And that's what companies are doing. They are taking different components and trying to build the oil. And you're not going to find that unless you run the test for a longer duration. Here's Dr. Jeffrey Tabbitt. Oh, and let me mention here. So they did this research unbeknownst to doTERRA. So you can say, oh, doTERRA funded it and they're the ones, of course it's going to come out beneficial. Well, no, they didn't actually. They did this on their own, and it wasn't until after that they found this and shared it with doTERRA that doTERRA gave them some money to keep funding this this project. And when you look at it, $128,000 is not a lot to fund a project. So it's not like they're getting millions of dollars. And
we're very fortunate to have an interdisciplinary team of scientists whose primary interest is in the development of nutraceuticals as therapeutic agents. So, unbeknownst to doTERRA, independently we went to their website, we purchased a variety of essential oils, along with analogous oils from competitors, and we began to test them in our research models. Here's a couple of examples. We're very interested in the pharmacokinetic properties of essential oils. How is the oil absorbed? Where in the body is it distributed? How is it metabolized? We have been interested in finding nutraceutical effects on biomarkers of oral health. One of those enzymes Dr. Hill mentioned, I'll cover it just briefly, MMP8, matrix metalloprotease. It's a type of enzyme that breaks down connective tissue in the mouth. The lower the activity of the enzyme, the healthier the gums. And indeed, one of our investigators discovered that On Guard is a very potent inhibitor of MMP8. Now, those are just two examples. This last one I'm going to talk about for a moment. I think we all know that, and it's been well documented, that essential oils have antioxidant properties. So we purchased several oils, ylang-ylang, black pepper, and ginger, and utilized a scientifically valid and well-accepted method for detecting antioxidant activity. And sure enough, we found, to no one's surprise, that each of these doTERRA essential oils had robust antioxidant properties. What did surprise us is that when we deconstructed the oil and purified the individual major components of the oil, those individual components alone could not replicate the antioxidant properties, nor was it replicated when we tried to reconstruct the oil, when we took those purified components and synthetically built the oil and put it back together. That didn't work. The last piece of data that came from those studies that sets the stage for today is that the doTERRA competitor oils from other vendors, the non-doTERRA oils, did not also replicate those antioxidant properties. Now, what I've just shared with you are independent observations from our research team and laboratories. At this stage, we'd had no interaction or involvement with doTERRA. But those findings were so striking that we began to think about or hypothesize what we call internally the oil effect. Let me describe to you how we think about this oil effect. Our observations suggest that there are three hallmark characteristics of the oil effect. First is that doTERRA oils robustly stimulate therapeutically relevant signaling pathways within cells that we can detect with scientific methodology. Two, those effects are associated with the whole oil, not individual components. And then finally, three, what's there, it seemed to us in many of those effects were not replicated by doTERRA competitors.
This is a great video. You can keep watching it, and you can look at the link there. But if you're wanting a cheap oil, know that it's probably been built. It's not pure. You cannot have the labor-intensive process to bring the oil and have it actually be what it says it claims to be for a cheap price. Here's the kicker. Blue Cross Blue Shield actually has on their debit card, their health debit card, doTERRA as a vendor where people can purchase items. Now, if that doesn't tell you the quality that they have, the doTERRA has, and the respect that they have garnered from the medical world, I mean, I don't know what else can convince someone. You can't get cheap oils and think that they're going to do what you want them to do. If you're using them for medicinal purposes, if you're using them as some sort of nutraceutical, or you're wanting to use them as an alternative or an adjunct of therapy, never go against what your doctor is saying, but people want something natural. And if you think you're going to get something natural with cheap oils, it's not. You're not going to.